So in this section we're going to go over the Accelerometer API in PhoneGap, and what it does is it basically captures the motion of the device in the X, Y, and Z direction. So X being from left to right, right to left, Y being up and down, and then Z being if your phone was flat and you pick it up straight up, that would be the Z-axis. So we're going to take a look at some of these methods. We have accelerometer.getCurrentAcceleration. So that'll get the actual acceleration at that point. This watch acceleration will give us a continuous flow of the device's acceleration. Clear watch will clear any acceleration that's being watched. And then we have our success and error arguments along with some options. So I'm not going to use the example on the documentation because you can go there and browse that on your own. So I just want to create a simple application, very simple. So I'm going to open up NetBeans, and let's see, we have our test app and our global XML, config XML, which just looks like this. We have all the metadata, the name of the application. I have all the features. I'm using every feature here. Whatever you're going to use, geolocation, camera, you should include these feature tags in your config file. And then we just have some preferences and stuff that really doesn't really matter right now. So I'm going to get out of that, and we have a blank index.html file, and this should be all we need. We'll just do some inline JavaScript. So I have just a boilerplate template that I use for all PhoneGap applications, and let's make this a little narrow. So we just have our doc type. This is going to be an HTML5 document, our head tags, and we have this script that's pointing to PhoneGap.js in the root directory, and we don't have this. The reason that we do it like this is because when we use PhoneGap build, it puts in that PhoneGap.js file, or it's sometimes called Cordova.js. So we don't actually need it for this particular application. Sometimes you will need to get your own PhoneGap.js file for different kind of features, but stuff like this we don't need. So just make sure you have that line there. And then we open a script tag, and this is in the head, and in the body we just have an h1 tag, and we have a paragraph tag with get acceleration. Now this is going to be replaced with the actual coordinates. So in the middle of this main script here, we're doing what we do in just about every PhoneGap application. We're creating an event listener called device ready, and that's an event that PhoneGap shoots off automatically, and then we want to catch it in a function which we're going to call on device ready. So when PhoneGap is loaded, this function will run. Okay, so this is our starting point for pretty much all of our applications. But we do want to actually create a variable outside of this. So at the very top of the script tag, I'm just going to create a variable called watch ID, and I'm going to set that to null. So in the on device ready, all we're going to do here is call another method, and it's going to be called start watch. Alright, so now what we want to do is create the start watch function. So we'll say function start watch. This isn't going to take any parameters. We're going to create a variable called options, and that's going to be equal to I guess, a JSON object. I'm going to have curly braces with the frequency. I'm sorry, the frequency, is that how you spell it? Which will be 3,000 milliseconds, so about 3 seconds. And what this is for the amount of time to go by where we want it to refresh our acceleration, our accelerometer. So under that, we are going to say watch ID is equal to navigator dot accelerometer. Is that spelled right? Accelerometer dot watch acceleration. Okay, so that's that watch acceleration I showed you right here. So at a regular interval, get the acceleration along the X, Y, and Z axis. Okay, so, and you can read more about it on the documentation. This is going to take some parameters. It's going to take a couple callback functions, and for the successful callback function, we'll say on success. The next one would be for if we got an error, that will be on error, and then we have our options. And our options are right here. All we have in our options is the frequency. So I think that's good for start watch. Yeah, that's all we need for start watch. So the next thing we want is stopwatch. Okay, so stopwatch, we're going to say if watch ID, so we're saying if the watch ID is not null, we set it to null up here, and then when we call start watch, it's then equal to the watch acceleration method, or object. So if there is a watch ID, then we want to say navigator dot accelerometer dot, I'm sorry, we want clear watch, because like I said, that will just clear any watch that's going on. So clear watch, and then that we want to pass the watch ID to that. Alright, and then we can just manually put the watch ID to null. Okay. Alright, so we get two things left to do, and that is to create the on success method and the on error method. Alright, so these are called callback functions. We run this method, and if it's successful, then this will run. If it's an error, this will run. So let's create those. So function on success, and for a parameter we want to just put acceleration, and then we can use that inside of our function or method. When I say function and method, they mean the same thing. So we're going to create a variable called element, and that's going to be equal to document dot element. Document get element by ID, and the ID we want is accelerometer. Okay, which is, actually we don't have that. So let's just get rid of this body, and we're going to put in div ID accelerometer, Okay, so in the middle here we can just say waiting for accelerometer. Okay, so that's where it's gonna output our values. So variable element is equal to this div. So the next thing we want to do is we want to say element dot inner HTML. Now inner HTML is just a method where we can add whatever we want to that div, to that accelerometer div, and we're going to put our coordinates there, or our acceleration values. So let's say acceleration x. So this will be along the x-axis, and we got to do some concatenation here. So we're going to use the plus sign and acceleration dot x. And the reason we can use this is because we passed in this acceleration parameter. So that's what we're going to use. We could have called this anything. So acceleration x, and then we're going to concatenate line break. Yeah, so we'll concatenate another line. And let's go over here, make it a little neater. We'll say acceleration for y. Acceleration dot y plus some line break plus. Okay, let me just copy this, make it a little quicker. This is going to be on the z axis. Okay, and then we're just going to put a timestamp after that. Okay, timestamp. Let's push this over a little, make it nice and lined up. And that's going to be acceleration dot timestamp. Okay, so that should be it for the onSuccess method. It's just going to spit out these coordinates. Not really coordinates, but values. And so the last thing we need to do is create the error function. So function on error, and all we'll do here is just give an alert. So we'll just say alert, there was a problem. Okay, not much of an error method, but it'll do. So that looks pretty good. To go through it again, we created a variable called watch ID, which is equal to null. We threw out the add event listener for the device ready event and caught it with on device ready, the method, and then we ran the start watch, which used the navigator.accelerometer.watch acceleration, and if that works, then it's going to call the onSuccess method, which is right here, and we're just going to spit out these values into this div down here. Alright, so let's save this and let's open this up in Ripple. I think it's just under test app. Okay, so waiting for accelerometer, and we can actually use a virtual accelerometer right here. So let's move this around. It should pop up. Okay, maybe we're doing something wrong. Let's see. Let's look at the console. Okay, cannot set property inner HTML of null. Okay, so inner HTML of null. Oh, we have a capital A here in Accelerometer. Let's see if that makes any difference. Alright, so now it's getting it. We have 000 because we haven't moved the phone. It's just still, but we can use this function over here, this cool little thing. Switch it up. Look at that. So it's just like as if this was our physical device. It's giving us all those ranges, and it's giving us the timestamp. So pretty cool. We don't even have to export an APK file and use our physical device. You can just test it right here. So that is the Accelerometer API of PhoneGap.